It was really shown when Pelosi was asked, well, is this thing constitutional for Obamacare? And she said, what are you talking about? It's like they no longer believe that there are any constitutional limitations on what they may do. All right, and if the people don't know that there are constitutional limitations and enforce it, then they'll get away with it. Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, I think we're exactly for "Are you kidding?"
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to your initiative idea, your point was that the initiative might be a bad idea because the media can easily influence people, and using basically mob influence or whatever, mob rule through the media. And I agree, our media is, run by that kind of thinking, okay? But because the media can or is able to influence great hosts of people in the wrong direction, I'm still not convinced that necessarily that makes the initiative a bad idea. Maybe the rules need to be changed in some way or fashion so that the public debate is framed in such a way that people actually get both sides or something. And right now it's just driven by who's got the most money, basically. Like that Measure 66 and 7 you mentioned, they had a ton of money and a ton of ads.
Well, see, but it's not just a ton of money. You have to understand, this is one of the reasons.
And
one of the
class
reasons.
warfare.
One of the reasons the unions have the power that they do is because the people who belong to the unions have a great thing to lose. Whereas what their opponent is the individual taxpayer. Okay, and I think it was Hayek or somebody else who commented about that the fact that you've got a very concentrated group of people who have everything to lose against a great mass of people who have just a little bit to lose, all right, puts that great mass of people at a disadvantage. Okay?
Yeah. Could you explain what the unions have to lose?
Well, they have to lose the power. In this case, the public unions, right? They get to guarantee themselves a retirement. They get to guarantee themselves never-ending wage increases. Okay, they get to guarantee themselves employment for life. All right, and so to lose all of those things, you think about just without having animus toward an individual public school teacher, she's got a lot to lose if the union loses in her mind. Whereas the average individual taxpayer says, they can frame it as, well, it's only another $10 a month. Okay?
Well, and to put a little finer point on it, there's a pretty popular YouTube video going around right now where the national president of, I think it's the SEIU, but I'm not sure, one of the public employee unions, is saying part of the reason we have power is because we have the ability to tap into hundreds of millions of dollars by payroll deduction from our members. So what happens is there's an automatic guaranteed money spigot that government itself helps collect the money for the unions to do all the things that Doug was just talking about. And part of the reason this is making the rounds on YouTube is basically this guy bragging that we have the government doing our bidding and collecting all our hundreds of millions of dollars for us, so therefore we have power.
He was the head of the NEA.
Was it the NEA?
Yeah.
Head, or was he the lawyer? I thought he was the chief counselor.
Yeah, the official in the NEA.
Yeah. So you have to understand that a very small group that has basically everything to lose, right, will stay focused on something, whereas when it gets peanut buttered across all of us, they can always argue, well, what's another $10 a month? What's another $5 a month? If you're, we're going to take care of all these people, but we're going to raise the Social Security rate from 7 3/4 to 8%. Come on, are you so hard-hearted that you won't give a 1/4%? Yeah.
Then you get Wisconsin, and then you get a sea change, a shift, which the very people who lose what they feared they would lose, and the people who foisted it on both sides are the ones who still get away with it. The leadership of the union still gets paid. The the union folks are the ones who get creamed.
Well, it ain't over yet.
Well, they went to a judge.
Of course, it's not over, but the thing that's happening is that it is started. And there is a backlash
Right.
against the unions that says this is too expensive. We
Right.
can't afford this.
Right.
The grown-ups
So-
have spoken.
So, I mean, that's the reason I don't like the initiative, just because the average American is no longer educated well enough in his rights and responsibilities and duties, and what they actually are. And the average American today, I think, is too beholden to the government already. I think I read somewhere that 1/3 of all the people in the United States are receiving something from the government now. Fully 1/3. And that doesn't, and I'm not talking about the fact that you get public education from the government. I'm talking about direct payments. Yeah.
That ties in with one of the first fears mentioned, in the quotes from the founding fathers, is that when they figure out they can vote themselves, these
Yeah,
benefits.
largesse from the public.
These guys can buy votes
Yeah.
with these benefits, and
Right.
yeah.
Well, let's move on. We still have more to cover. See, I knew we'd talk about this stuff. Amendments, okay? Everybody knows how we get amendments, right? Two mechanisms, either through Congress coming up with them, or they can call a convention. In fact, there have been discussions over the last 15 years about trying to call a constitutional convention. And my humble opinion on that is you ought to be dramatically opposed to it. There's no way we want another constitutional convention in the current climate. Okay. The ratification process is 3/4 of the states. In fact, one of the things that I don't know if it's been finalized or not, but, and maybe Herb, you can help me here. How many of you remember ERA? Yeah. The ERA is, I don't know if it's actually still out there, because one of the things I think they've not determined is there a statute of limitations, right, as to how long states can take to ratify. And if I remember right, we're within 2 or 3 states of the ERA being able to be ratified. And I know there have been legal cases brought about whether it's dead or not. And the last thing I remember is there was some discussion about an argument that said they had 7 years to gather, have ratification. But I don't know that that question has been finally resolved. And so it's just something to be aware of, because I don't know the answer. Maybe somebody will find it. Research project for this week. Yeah.
Wasn't I thought I heard something like the issue came up a couple of years ago, trying to make the District of Columbia a state of some sort.
Yes.
And wouldn't this, I think what I was hearing was that Congress wanted to just do it, and opponents were saying it was really an issue for a constitutional amendment.
Yes, because
It
the
says you
Constitution
can't do it
sets
within the
aside the
state.
District of Columbia itself as a seat of government.
What was that again?
The Constitution sets it aside
Right.
specifically.
Yeah, and
So
it
it
would
would
be
I think it would
annexed to
take.
Maryland or
Yeah.
Virginia or something.
But couldn't the ruling government say, we want to hand this off to another government? In other words, since the Congress is the government of DC, it seems like they could say, we'd like to set a new government under us, and they would be the...
Well, they could, but they couldn't give them any representation, direct representation in Congress as a state would have.